Annapurna is a rugged, tall Himalayan peak, the 10th tallest mountain in the world. It can be found in the north-central part of Nepal. It stands 8,091 meters above sea level at its highest point. And Annapurna was the first one to be climbed successfully. It is one of only 14 peaks on Earth that are over 8,000 meters high. Even though the French team reached the summit early, it wasn't until June 3, 1950 that a group of French climbers reached the summit. They went up the mountain from the north face and did so without using any tanks of oxygen. With its fearsome reputation and high death rate, K2 is the only other 8,000-meter peak with a higher death rate than the north face of the Purna. This is because the north face of the Annapurna has the mountain's most accessible slope and easiest way to get to the top. It is also notoriously hard to climb, even after a slight snowfall. This gentler slope makes it easy for big avalanches to rush down the north face. The infamous south face of the mountain was a scary wall of ice, snow, and rock, with a nearly constant 55-degree slope from the glacier and its foot to the summit ridge of the mountain 3,000 meters above it. It was one of the much steeper sides of the hill that climbers would soon try to climb up after the north face of Annapurna had been conquered. In 1970, a British team led by mountaineering legend Chris Bonington made the first successful climb of Annapurna's south face. They climbed up a steep bridge on the south face of Annapurna and went straight to the actual summit. After their historic ascent, the path up the bridge became known as the British Route. 11 years later, a Japanese mountaineering team led by Hiro Yoda successfully climbed the south face. The route that became known as the Japanese Route later involved taking a different, steeper ridge than the one the British team had used. This ridge led directly to the slightly lower center peak, but in 1992, two French climbers named Pierre Bane and Jean-Christophe tried a third, much harder route that went between the ridges of the British and Japanese routes. As the climbers on this route went up the south face of Annapurna, ice and rocks were falling like hail. Pierre Bane and Jean-Christophe, two of the best climbers in the world, made it to 7,400 meters before the notoriously bad weather forced them to turn around. But when they returned, Bane died when one of his rope anchors broke. Jean-Christophe, on the other hand, was able to get down safely. The first ascent of this challenging climb wouldn't be tried again until 2007. People called the route the Bane Route. When famous mountaineer Uli Steck tried again, he was knocked out at about 5,850 meters. This made him give up on his attempt to reach the top. Again, he couldn't finish the climb. In 2008, he had gotten a lot of people interested in completing this challenging route, and the first ascent of the Bane Route became the most wanted first ascent among the best climbers in the Himalayas. One of these skilled climbers who tried to conquer the way was a man named Park Young-seok. The South Korean mountaineer was a well-known climber and adventurer who climbed all 14 of the 8,000-meter peaks, one of the most complex and most important things to do in mountaineering. He had also been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. In 2010, Park Young-seok tried to climb the Bane Route for the first time, but he had to give up when one of his team members hurt his knee on a rock that came after him. The following year, however, Park would try to climb the dangerous mountain again, this time with Don Min and Shin, two of his climbing partners from their first attempt. Park told the South Korean media before he left for NAL that he was very determined to do well this time. "I won't just return home." On October 9, 2011, the group got to where they planned to set up their base camp. They set up their tents and then started putting ropes up on the lower parts of the slope. Like the last time, they made it to the top, no matter how long it took. They got used to the high altitude and made final preparations at base camp. The group talked about whether they would go down the mountain from the southern side, where they came from, or follow the summit route after climbing and then go down the much easier northern route. Instead of deciding to make their choice later, the 3 climbers on the team were ready to leave base camp and start their ascent on October 17, 2011. They planned to climb the route in the alpine style, which meant carrying as little gear as possible and not setting up camp ahead of time. On the other hand, climbers who use the alpine technique don't set up camps and move gear between them. They need to make a quick assessment with the few tools and supplies they have. The group of experienced climbers made rapid progress up the mountain. By 4 p.m. on October 18, they were 6,400 meters above sea level. At this point, the team decided to stop trying to reach the top and radioed base camp to tell them. This radio contact was the last time anyone talked to the 3 guys. Annapurna had been hit by a severe storm system, and the 3 men said that huge rocks were falling from above and striking them. Again, the people at the base camp were worried when they couldn't get in touch with the climbers by radio. On October 20, a search and rescue helicopter was also sent out to look for signs of the climbers. The search helicopter couldn't find any indication of the 3 missing men, except for a rope that may have belonged to them that was buried deep in the snow. The helicopter drew back when it began to run out of fuel. Soon after, Sherpas were sent to look for the climbers on the ground around the 5,200-meter mark on the south face, but they were also unable to find them. Over the next few days, 14 Sherpas and 5 Koreans were added to the search and rescue team. They all looked for new signs of the guys with the Korean rescue climbers. To help with the search, they brought metal detectors. They thought the climbers were probably hit by falling rocks and then carried by avalanches into the CVA's field in the glacier below. But in the end, even though the search team worked harder, they couldn't find any more signs of the missing climbers. On October 29, the search was put on hold because the situation on the scene was dangerous for the rescue team. Many of the Koreans on the search team, including many who had climbed with Park Young-seok before, went back to Annapurna to look for the 3 people's bodies after the search was called off. This made them sad. Even though it hurt the Korean climbing community to lose Park Young-seok Shin, Don Min, and Kei Ki-suk, many of Park Young-seok's friends and fans were glad he died doing what he loved, since he was famously quoted as saying that mountaineers should be in the mountains. I will keep going on trips until the day I die. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.